You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Raise your hand if you're ready to finally stop taking work home with you and actually start taking a lunch break. Or spend more time helping students, the reason you got into this profession, and less time doing stuff like bus duty. And if you're ready to finally use data to showcase the importance of your program and the progress your students have made. If any of those things sound like you, then I have got the ultimate solution for you, and that is my stress-free school counseling course. Now you may be thinking, wait, you've talked about this before. I have. So my stress-free school counseling course used to only be launched a few times a year, but now it is available all year long. And it is at a discounted price. This is perfect if you're the counselor who wants to work through it at your own pace. If instead of going through with a cohort and doing things together, you want to get to it when you can because you have a busy schedule. But first, let's see if you're even the right fit. Does this sound like you? You're a new counselor who wants to get started on the right track and not make mistakes and then redo things later. Or maybe you're a veteran counselor and you're feeling burnt out. Or maybe you're just a counselor who feels overwhelmed and stretched too thin. It's so hard to do all the things at once. Or maybe you're a counselor determined to change your program from reactive to proactive. Well, you're in the right place. Stress-Free School Counseling is totally for you. It's a 5-module digital course. So what that means is you get to watch video modules of me talking to you, just like I do here on the podcast, and teaching you in different areas like scheduling, organization, data collection, advocating for your role, and handling pushback. If this sounds like something you may be interested in, if you're a lifelong learner and can't wait to improve your counseling program, you're going to love this. And of course, it's stress-free. Head over to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/enroll to get started today. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So I hope you are having an amazing holiday break so far and getting all of the rest and relaxation that you deserve. Or if maybe you're not that type, I always say that, but maybe you thrive on like the social gatherings and vacations. I know I do. Either way, regardless of how you're spending your break, I hope that you are enjoying it. So I have a quick episode for you guys today. I just want to talk to you about some self-care tips for the holiday break, but then these also apply to the school year. So as I was writing these out for the holiday break, I was like seeing parallels between the holiday self-care and just the school year in general self-care. So I have 4 things for you here. Like I said, I'll keep it brief. I know you have important things to do, like watching Christmas movies and relaxing. But let's go ahead and dive in. So first up, my self-care tip for you is don't overcommit. So when it comes to personal self-care, you don't have to RSVP to everything. I know people get really overwhelmed this time of year, especially if you have kids and they have like parties and performances and you have your own things and your spouse or partner may have like a work holiday party that you have to go to as well. It gets busy, right? Especially if you start counting like there's only so many Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, so people are doing stuff on the weekends. So yeah, don't overcommit, right? You don't have to RSVP to everything. Choose what matters to you and let the rest go. Or else you'll just be driving around everywhere in your car and driving yourself crazy. So it's okay to say no to things. And then the professional side of that when it comes to a school year is that it's okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. You can be clear on your counselor duties to ensure that you're delivering the best possible services to your students and that your time is being valued. So, just say, no, actually, I'm sorry, I can't do that committee because I'm, spending that time preparing for these small groups. And of course, as always, if you have that data to back you up, it's a lot easier to advocate for yourself. Okay, so that was self-care tip number 1, don't overcommit. Number 2, set boundaries. So when this comes to your personal life, I encourage you to set clear boundaries on you and your family's lifestyle when you have extended family visiting. So remember, you can be loving and firm at the same time. I know I love to host. We always have a lot of visitors in town all year round, and I just love it, and I think it's so much fun. But at the same time, a lot of times things that may matter to you or that you prioritize with your family, whether it's the things that your family eats or the types of, entertainment your family watches or the activities that your family does, a lot of times those things get compromised when, other families in town. And so it's just important to know that you can have boundaries, right? You can say like, oh, actually, we're not going to do that. I'm just being a mom. A couple things I'm thinking of is like, if you only let your toddler have so much sugar and then it's like cookie bake-off time, of course you want them to participate and it's like a once in a while kind of thing. But don't overdo it, Sometimes the grandmas get kind of like icing heavy. I actually have a funny story. My mom, so I'm from Georgia, Southern family, very like country upbringing, and put butter on everything, right? Then I moved to California and I kind of changed to olive oil. I think the first time I bought olive oil was, when I was like 23 or something, because it was just always butter. And my son, he calls my mom Nanny. That's his name for his grandma. And he now calls butter nanny butter. Like if we're making him a bagel in the morning and I'll be like, oh, do you want peanut butter? He's like, nanny butter. I'm like, oh, you want nanny butter? It's just so funny. He associates butter with nanny, which I love it because it's like a fun memory and that's like their thing. They love butter together or whatever. And it's a treat because he doesn't really get butter at our house a lot. But at the same time, if we're with her for a week, a lot of butter goes down and it kind of bothers me and my husband. So that's just an example of, setting those clear boundaries. Another example, mom example that comes to mind, when you have little ones, like newborns, maybe you're nursing or something. And then, I think they call it, you can get like the holiday mastitis or whatever. If we have any male listeners right now, sorry, this is like on a mom tangent. But a lot of times, everyone's holding the baby, which is great, of course, because everyone's visiting and they want to visit with the baby. But then you're not getting to feed the baby as often, and then you can get sick in turn. So just things like that. You want to be mindful and set those boundaries. Okay, and then what does that look like in the professional setting? So how does that look like when you return to work? Well, schedule in some margin. So one way to do this is to allow for some buffers in your schedule. So when I used to schedule out my counseling day, I'd be like, okay, I have an individual session from 10 to 10:30, then at 10:30 a class lesson, and then when that's over, I'm going to go straight into my small group, and then I have a meeting, and then I ended up being like late and stressed out and never having time to pee. So it's important that you schedule in some buffers. Like, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes travel time or 15 minutes in between these sessions so I can catch up my counseling log and prepare for the next session. Things like that, right? Or maybe you need to prep for a class lesson. So allow for buffers in your schedule so you can take a break and be prepared, right? So that's a boundary you can set. Like, yes, you're going to be at work this many hours, but it doesn't mean that you have to fill them to the exact minute. Another thing you can do, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, is having a clear system for parents and teachers to contact you so you're not constantly playing catch up. So I talk about this a lot with like batching communication. I was talking about that in November on an episode. But if you set a boundary with parents and teachers, like these are the times I'll be responding to emails, these are the times I'll be responding to phone calls, you can expect a response within 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever. You're setting that boundary so you're not laying awake at night like, oh my gosh, I got to email that parent back, or, you're taking all that stress off and scheduling in those margins and allowing for buffers and boundaries. Okay, tip 3. This one's kind of a fun one. So it's about indulging in your 5 senses to practice mindfulness. So what I encourage you to do is, this is your break. So if you are, in the relaxing mood, I encourage you to take it a little extra self-care and indulge in all 5 senses. So let's say you're going to watch your favorite holiday movie, right? Okay. Well, that's just one sense. That's your watching. Well, I guess you're listening too, so technically 2 senses. But what if you kick it up a notch, right? What if you really full send it on the self-care and you're like, okay, what about my cozy socks? Ooh, I'm going to wear those. That's like a tactile sensation I can get. Ooh, or maybe I'll make cookies so I can taste those and smell those. So now you're feeling your socks, you're tasting the cookies, you're smelling the cookies, you're listening to your movie, and you're watching your movie. Or maybe you light a candle or whatever, but just doing a few extra steps to make it really fun and you're really in the moment, which is a way to practice mindfulness, right? Now at the school version of that, you could do the same thing with your office, you spruce it up a little. That's like your home when you're at school. So you want to make it pleasurable for your 5 senses and for your students' comfort level as well too, right? So maybe that means you have a nice plant in there that you can look at, or put a mirror if your office is really small. I know some of you guys may even be in a closet. It happens. You could have a mirror, and then maybe you have some essential oils diffusing, or some shaggy rugs or something. But just make it fun and use those 5 senses to indulge them and to practice mindfulness at home and at school. So that's a fun way to do self-care. My last self-care tip for you is to unplug and take a break. So, of course, during the holiday break, how you can do this in your personal life is you're going to unplug and take a break from school. So don't check your email. Hopefully you're not getting any, because I hope no one else is on there sending emails. But just unplug, relax, spend this time. A lot of times we get so busy on the break, we go back and we don't feel rested. Like you need a vacation from your vacation. That happens to me all the time. So it's important to take the actual break, right? To schedule in some time just for you to relax, unplug from your devices. I think you'll really find that helpful. And how that pertains to the work day or in your professional life is scheduling some breaks throughout your day. So I talked about this a little earlier about scheduling in that margin or those buffers. But, scheduling a lunch. I know that's kind of controversial in the counseling world. We're always doing lunch bunches or meeting with kiddos during our lunch or planning something during our lunch. But maybe just take a lunch just for you. Or maybe during your lunch break, you walk the track or something, right? So get some exercise, take a lunch break, schedule in those little mini breaks throughout the day between sessions and between lessons. And, you may feel like you're kind of slacking as a counselor by doing this and taking these breaks, but you're not. You're actually going to show up as an even better counselor because you are rested and prepared to deliver the best services possible to your students. Okay, guys, I hope you found those self-care tips for the holiday break and even for your school year helpful. I have a gift that I want you to give yourself. So you probably heard me talk about my stress-free school counseling course. If you're looking for more help when it comes to not overcommitting and establishing boundaries, when it comes to counselor duties, admin demands, and parent interactions, then you're going to love it. I talk a lot about this stuff. I give you the strategies and language that you need to do these things. And the counselors who have taken the course leave feeling really empowered and seeing a lot of improvement. So as it's the break, you might be thinking about what you want to do differently next year when you go back in January. And I think this would be a good place to start. So if you're interested, go over to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/enroll to see all the details. If you're celebrating Christmas, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.